Okay, welcome back again to Miss Tucker's science class. Today we're going to be talking about animals, and we're going to start off. There are really two different types of animals. We call them invertebrates and vertebrates, and so we're going to talk about invertebrate animals to begin with. So. An invertebrate animal is the animal that does not have a backbone. Okay? So, and that's where that word vertebrate comes in. So an invertebrate meaning kind of no, so no vertebrate. So meaning it does not have a backbone. And there's a wide variety of animals, and some of these examples are worms. Worms don't have a backbone. Sponges, clams, lobsters, grasshoppers. So we can say insects, but we'll put grasshoppers as our example. Things like that do not have a backbone, and so they're considered invertebrates. So we're going to start off with our very largest group of invertebrates, and that's the insects. Okay? And it's a very diverse group of organisms, but many, like ants, have bodies that can be broken down in three parts. So we can say one of the things you need to have to be an insect is three body parts. Three body parts. So if we would look at say an ant, and the first thing, if we're going to do three body parts, the first thing we're going to draw is like his head, and there. Put little eyeballs in here, and that's his first part, and then it comes down and it makes the second part of his body, and this is called the thorax. I'll label that in just a second. And then the third part of his body is the abdomen, and off of his thorax, which is the first part of the body, are his legs. And if we were to draw little Mr. Ant real quickly. He has 6 legs. Okay, and they all come off of this thorax. They don't come off of the abdomen. So all 3 pairs of his legs come off of his thorax. Okay, and so put up another one. And he's kind of got a strong arm on this side, and make it a little bit shorter. And then his last leg is right there. Okay. So this is Mr. Ant, and he looks more like a spider. But this is his head, and that's the first body part. Okay, is his head. And that includes his eyes, his antennae, the little things that come off the top of his, I didn't put little antennae here. Okay, there's his antennae. And that includes the things that are on his head. The second part is this part right here, and that's his thorax. Okay, that's the second part. And his wings or legs is where they attach to the thorax. And then the final part is his abdomen. So, for one of the things to be an insect, you have to have 3 body parts. the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And then when we talk about legs, they usually have 3 sets of legs, 3 pairs of legs, for a total of 6. So this is our insects. Insects have an open circulatory system, means that their blood isn't contained in veins like it is in humans. It just flows throughout their body. You know, they don't have like a vein, and so if you were to open one up, it's just be a bunch of goo inside because they don't have any veins. So anyway, so those are the insect body parts. Let me erase this and we'll talk about our next part, talking about insects. They're kind of, when we talk about them, they're grouped into kind of 2 different categories about their changes. It says many insects such as butterflies, ants, bees, and beetles change drastically from the time they are young to the time they are fully grown. The physical transformation that these insects undergo is called metamorphosis. Metamorphosis. Okay. So metamorphosis is a physical transformation meaning change, and a development growth. So if we were to look at it, there are 2 different types. We're going to look at them one at a time. So the first type being what we call complete metamorphosis. Okay. And a good example of a complete metamorphosis is a butterfly. So he goes through 4 changes. 4 changes. And these changes are, it starts as an egg, and then it goes to a larva, and then it goes into a pupa, and then it goes into an adult. Those are the 4 stages of complete metamorphosis. So if we were to look at it, if we were to draw it out, so here we have our little leaf, and the adult butterfly laid some eggs, so we're going to start out being an egg. Let's make it look like a leaf, okay? And it starts off as an egg, and then it changes, it comes out of the egg as a little caterpillar. And that caterpillar is a larva, and he eats the leaf. And so we'll draw a little fuzzy caterpillar. I'm not good at caterpillars. Put a little eyeball, and he's got little legs. So and this stage, while he's a caterpillar, is called the larva. It's supposed to be a V. Looks like 2 R's. Larva. Okay? And so his job is to get bigger. He starts off teeny weeny tiny, and then he eats and eats, and he's nothing but an eating machine. And then there comes a time, and he goes into his next stage, and in a caterpillar, he forms a chrysalis. So if we were to have a branch here, and here's a leaf, make sure we know it's a branch. And he kind of makes this little cocoon kind of thing, okay? And in a butterfly, it's called a chrysalis, but this stage is called the pupa stage, okay, in the butterfly. And then after a certain length of time, he comes out of that into a beautiful adult butterfly. So let's put some antenna on him, make him pretty. And then we have the final stage, which is a adult. And then the adults lay eggs and start this cycle all over again. And that's complete metamorphosis. And there's a lot of um, different types of insects that go through a complete metamorphosis. There's some beetles that go through complete metamorphosis where they are encapsulated into a pupa and then come out as an adult. Okay, our next type, and I'm going to erase this picture, I'm going to leave everything else, is an incomplete metamorphosis. And it has three changes. And its changes are, it starts out as an egg, and then it changes to a nymph, and then finally a adult. So if we were to look at something, say, a dragonfly. So a dragonfly starts out as an egg, and then he changes into a nymph. And let's make him look like. Remember, all the legs come off of the thorax. So this is a nymph. And then his final stage is a dragonfly. And do not confuse my dragonfly with a butterfly. This is a dragonfly, and this is the adult dragonfly. Okay, so a dragonfly does not have where he makes himself like a pupa. If we were to compare it, the eggs are the same, and this nymph stage is kind of like the larva stage of the complete metamorphosis, but they don't have a pupa. They don't make a hard outer covering to become an adult. They just change from a nymph to an adult, okay? And then we have the adult stage, and this is the adult dragonfly. All right, so that's talking about metamorphosis, physical transformation. Let's talk a little bit more about invertebrates other than insects. I'm going to give you a list of them. That's not a complete list, but just kind of an example of one or two of them. And the next thing we have are arachnids. Everybody should know what this is. These are our spiders, scorpions, and there's a last one, ticks. You know, the things that get on your dog or cat or other type of animal, a tick. It's also an arachnid. And you remember we talked about insects having 3 body parts and 6 legs. Well, in arachnid, you have 2 body parts, and you have 8 legs or 4 pairs, okay? So if we were to look at a spider, say a spider, so here is his body, and then here's his head, and we have 8 legs. My spider's not as pretty as my ant was. Okay, and so we have some eyeballs here. Okay, and that is an arachnid or a spider. In this case, it's a spider. Okay. Our next one are centipedes and millipedes. Centipedes and millipedes. And this word peds, I left the E off. Peds means legs or feet, okay? Centi meaning 100, milli meaning more than 100. So these animals have long, segmented bodies, and in a centipede, you have 1 pair for each segment, And then in a millipede, you have 2 pair for each segment. And that's the difference between a centipede and a millipede, is how many legs that they have. Okay, so there's 2 other invertebrate animals. And the last 2 we're going to talk about are, remember these are invertebrates, they do not have a backbone. Crustaceans. And these are, they live in water. And it could be creek water, lake water, ocean water, any type of water. That most of them have antennae, little things that come off the top of their head.